going to be a bit of a chess match here.
Yeah, it really is. It looks like our players are ready to go here. There's your fist bump. We're off, and it looks like first turn is going to Alberto. Starts to make Comfey in the active, and that means we can be flower selecting. Very first thing he does on his very first turn. Oh, Radiant Greninja and a Charmander. Yeah, he wants both of those.
I think you have to take the Greninja because Alberto's hand has no other way to get Pokemon. So it's going to have to be a Concealed Cards and Pray here in top 8. 1, 2. Uh-oh.
Ooh,
this is not what you want to see.
And a Charizard to stage 2. That is not ideal. We do have a Manaphy coming down here, but I think that might be the turn.
Yeah.
And we're just having a look. There's a Rare Candy, there's a Mirage Gate, there's a switch. Yeah, that is the pass. Alberto having a very suboptimal turn 1, and that is putting it lightly. So Francisco gets, and we straight away, Colress's Experiment. It's turn 2. You are allowed to play a supporter card, and that's free to your hand, 2 to the Lost Zone.
And it's sort of interesting that Alberto choosing not to take the Charmander, taking the Greninja instead, but did have Rare Candy Charizard in hand, so had he taken the Charmander, would have had a very chunky attacker for next
but he only got the Charizard off of the Greninja Concealed Cards.
No, it was a flower selecting for these two, right?
Yes, but then he used the Greninja to get the Charizard.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you are correct.
So unfortunately, that wouldn't have worked. It would have been fun, though.
It would have been fun.
But you're right, it's an awkward situation. You want the Charmander. Because that Charizard was clearly near the top of the deck. There's a decent chance he top decks it next turn.
Yeah, true.
And then you got Rare Candy. So it is a tough decision. Oh, and Francisco not only has the turn 1 Colress's Experiment, also has a Battle VIP pass.
And hasn't even used the Comfey in the active there, so starts flower selecting on the back of this Battle VIP pass. And if you're Francisco, this is what you want to see. If your opponent has had a bit slow start, you want to make sure you can try your hardest to capitalize, make sure your deck sets up so you can try and wrap this game up nice and easy. So it's like Francisco there, look, eyeing up a Comfey and probably a Radiant Greninja. Like we said, we see this quite often turn 1.
Classic Lost Box turn 1, another Comfey and a Radiant Greninja just to draw a whole heap of cards, but a very different situation here. Getting that Radiant Greninja nicely off the Battle VIP pass, not given a super awkward decision, and desperately hoping to be bailed by the Radiant Greninja, just getting it as kind of a nice handy little bonus.
Here we do see the Concealed Cards guarding an energy and then drawing 2. Let's see what this Concealed Cards gets Francisco. We see a Lost Vacuum and a Lightning Energy.
Yeah, neither's going to do him a huge amount of good right now, unfortunately. So now we start selecting some of them old flowers there. And what have we got? It looks like a Sableye is one of the cards. Clearly a decision being made here, though.
I want to give a shout out to the camera operator there for getting that flower selecting angle real fast so we can see Sableye and the Mirage Gate. Sableye does look like it's hitting the Lost Zone, going up to 3 for Francisco there.
And then does have too good. You can't get rid of Mirage Gate.
It's a very good card, isn't it? You know what I mean? There we see the switch card into Comfey. Battle VIP pass. Welcome to the party. Oh, considering maybe the Artisan there.
There's a decision to be made here. It is an awkward one. Now, putting a Battle VIP pass in the Lost Zone on turn 1 when you don't have a full bench, that is not something we see very often at all. But in terms of stadiums, we've got a single Artisan and a single Pokestop. And that means that each of those stadiums becomes significantly more important here. So, yeah, I chose to go for those. I understand why, but it's always awkward to see that Battle VIP pass going away turn 1.
This is another big Concealed Cards here, Ross, though. What can Alberto? Oh, that's a Nest Ball. I guess this... Okay, now this, in theory, this Nest Ball could maybe find a Charmander. You do have, access to Rare Candy Charizard next turn. You do have Manaphy, so you can't really Greninja it. But is this what this Nest Ball's going to be, Ross? Is it going to be a Nest Ball for Charmander and cross your fingers?
It's certainly tempting. The only other real option here is a Comfey, but if you get a Comfey, you've got to have switching in and out of the active to actually use it and flower selecting. And the thing is, Comfey doesn't guarantee you anything useful. You could get 2 cards which aren't really going to help. Whereas if you go for a Charmander, your hand as it is at the moment, you are going to get that Rare Candy and the Charizard. It's literally already in your hand. And your opponent's playing 1 Roxanne. That's not activated. Your opponent's not taking any prizes. Lost Box isn't playing Iono. So your hand is safe. You've got Manaphy down, so you're probably safe from a Greninja. So the only thing you're really worried about is a Sableye, and there's only 4 cards in the Lost Zone to start. I'm going Charmander here, because I think all the things that could take it, I think are too unlikely.
Yes.
Your opponent probably isn't playing Iono. Your opponent probably isn't getting a Sableye rolling, so...
Here we go, and I guess you always play around Escape Rope, because you could just promote Manaphy if that was a thing. So it looks like Alberto has gone for the Charmander here. Oh boy, I mean, it's going to be incredible. I don't think Alberto has any even options to do anything else. I mean, you can play like Jet Energy, but I think you'd rather leave Greninja in the active here, all things considered. Just going to attach Energy to Charmander, don't mind that. And it could be a pass over right now. Mission for Francisco is try to remove that Charmander, get it out of the way as soon as possible, and then I think this game one looks like it could be fairly in Francisco's favor. What can he manufacture?
I mean, there is a single copy of Boss's Orders in the deck. That is about the one thing Alberto could not protect from. There's the Escape Rope you mentioned, but like you also said, there's, oh my goodness, he's got a Forest Seal Stone in hand.
Oh dear.
Does he have a Pokemon V?
I do not see a Pokemon V, but we do see the Lost Vacuum. So is there a world in which you can get to 7 with the Mirage Gate with the Lost Vacuum? How much one now? 4. Here we see a Flower Selecting, see what other stuff we can gather. Switch card. Was that the boss?
No.
It was.
It was the boss. It was a lovely full-up Lysander. Chooses not to go and get it. That's an interesting one, but you would still need. You could just attach Retreat Comfey and attack with Cramorant there. So I wonder what have we missed something there? You could even just use you'd even just use the Escape Route into the Cramorant if you wished. So have we missed anything? I think this is a case of Francisco isn't just going for the big KO on the Charmander.
Fair enough.
It is, you know what?
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to have the rare candy Charizard, and even if you do, I like my setup. I've got my thing rolling here, and I want to use Colress's Experiment, because that's the other thing. Using a Boss's Orders means you don't get a Colress's Experiment. It means you give up those cards in the Lost Zone. Yeah. So... And look, we know Alberto's hand is terrible, and we know he's got the rare candy Charizard. Yeah. Francisco can guess that the hand is pretty bad, but doesn't have that information. He hasn't seen the hand like we have, so... Yes, the Boss's Order seems like a good play, but it seems like Francisco has got something else cooking here. And let's be fair, by far the better start.
Oh wait, you can just attach Forest Hill Stone and Lost Vacuum to get to 10 and use Sableye, right?
Well, that was what I was also going to mention. You don't need the Boss's Orders if you can get to 10 in the Lost Zone. There is.
Or the Stadium even.
Double Lost Vacuum, in fact. 1 to the Lost Zone. Now we're at 10 and Sableye. And of course, dropping 6 damage counters on Charmander for a KO and 6 somewhere else. That's better than just a straight KO.
There you go. Yeah, just we'll make sure you turn the screw there, as it were, putting all the pressure on. He starts setting up that Manaphy, and yeah, this is looking rather dicey there. Francisco piloting that turn rather nicely, and that's why he's in top 8, and that's why I'm here.
Well, no, I talk quite a lot about the players who have more information than us. I didn't see that he could get to 10 cards in the Lost Zone, and obviously in that situation, yes, you use Sableye. Then we get 5 down on the Manaphy, 1 down on the Greninja. And this is looking very rough for Alberto. He went all in on the Charmander. The only real thing that could... Well, it didn't look like he could get 10 cards in a Lost Zone. Not from the position he was in when he started the turn. But like you say, he played it absolutely beautifully. And now we got a Comfey coming the active with Jet Energy, but your 2 prizes down, and where's the attack coming from?
Yeah, you're right. I'm not really... I guess, how many cards are in Lost Zone now? Sorry, 2, so... Not looking good. You try and find yourself a Colress realistically. I guess you can pay retreat, go into this Comfey. I guess this Comfey could find Colress. Then you can maybe try and respond with a Cramorant potentially or something like this. But we definitely need to see an attack this turn here from Alberto.
I think Cramorant is probably about your only option here. In terms of realistic attack coming out, you need to get 2 more cards. Really, it needs to be a Colress's Experiment. That'll get 2 cards in the Lost Zone. And that will hopefully give you a chance of, you know, getting both the Cramorant and the pivot to actually get the Cramorant into the active. So,
and there is a Colress, to be fair. It's Flower Selecting into Colress. Let's see what we... Oh, there's an Ultra Ball, so that would mean Cramorant is an option now, I believe.
we would still need a pivot option of some description. Now, I don't believe... Have we seen a retreat yet? No, I don't think we've seen a retreat. So it could be as simple as just attaching that basic fire energy to the Comfey and retreating. So it looks like we can get a KO. Oh, we've seen the jet energy go down this turn, haven't we? So we have seen an attachment. We've just not seen a retreat.
Yeah.
That's upsetting, unfortunately. So we would need an actual pivot.
I think that might have been a concession there from Alberto. Yeah.
So Alberto concedes very quick game one. Of course, we're up to 70 minutes in the best of 3 for top 8. Alberto was not winning this. Was that a turn 2 Sableye?
Yeah, it was.
You don't see many turn 2 Sableyes, but and that is why Alberto took the risk. Generally speaking, you don't want to leave just a single Charmander down as your only option, but it really did look like you were probably going to be okay. Didn't work out. Go to game 2. We got 65 minutes, so we've still got 20 minutes more than your average best of 3, so we can still get a proper best of 3 in here.
Yeah, and I'm guessing for Alberto, just thinking, what are the chances I draw that bad again 2 out of 3 times? Hopefully not. Leave myself enough time to make sure that I can win this next 2 out of 3. Definitely possible, but yeah, the turn 2 Sableye, and that's the power of that Lost Vacuum combo. I need to get cards into the Lost Zone at a very fast rate. So yeah, Francisco taking a quick 1-0 lead here in his Masters top 8. Just needs to win 1 out of 2 to secure himself a slot in this top 4.
Yeah, that is all he needs here. Get that 1 win, get into top 4, carry on. Of course, you know, we talked about at the beginning, well, this is a deck that doesn't really have much of an answer to a Charizard. There's nothing in the deck that can hit 330 damage. Well, it's not an issue. A Charizard never hits the field. Yeah. But hopefully for Alberto, we are going to see a slightly better start next turn. Francisco played that beautifully. And that's one of the things we see from the top players. Knowing when to extend. It took a bit of extension to get to those 10 cards for the Sableye, but the reward from that extension was absolutely worth doing it.
Yeah, 100%. The Sableye lost mine, proven so strong there, being able, who would have thought, spreading 12 damage counters turn 2 is really, oh no.
Double Comfey we don't love. The only Dragonite in the Lost Zone is a bit of a problem there, so not ideal prizes at all.
Alberto opted to go second. Interesting. And wow, Francisco didn't have a great start there. No cards in the Lost Zone, just led Sableye and benched Drapion. Something you have to do if you just have Sableye in the active, because that could easily get KO'd by a Cramorant. And Alberto immediately off to the races here with a Battle VIP pass.
Yeah, see, turn 2, 10 cards in the Lost Zone, not that likely. No. Turn 1 going second, 4 cards in the Lost Zone. It's double Comfey and a Chorus's Experiment. That's all you need. It's something we do see pulled off quite a lot. It's not a guarantee by any stretch, but it is something we see happening. And the fact of the matter is that you cannot, against a Lost Box deck, you cannot just leave a Pokemon with 110 HP or less in the active, because all it takes is a turn 1 Cramorant, get the KO, and it is all over.
Yeah, you are 100% correct there. So Alberto, is it going to be the classic? Yep, the old Comfey plus Greninja. We love to see it. I don't think we have any switching cards in Alberto's hand as of yet, so we might have to see a pay retreat into Comfey or anything like this. And no supporter in Alberto's hand yet. So while it's made it like a very strong start for Alberto, still needs a few things to really capitalize on this turn.
Yeah, we've gone for the classic turn 1 Battle VIP pass of Radiant Greninja and a Comfey here. So we are going to see some more cards. I mean, if he's got a couple energy in hand, we could use 1 to retreat, 1 to discard with Greninja. And we do have a couple of energy in hand. So at the very least, we're going to see 4 more cards here. And then we can see after that what the options are. So there's your concealed cards. It's an escape rope. And is that a Sableye?
Sableye, yeah.
But the escape rope will at least put the Comfey up quite nice. It means you're not using your attachment for the turn yet. So you could potentially retreat into another Comfey in a moment if that were an option. Switch card.
And the Chorus as well.
Oh, you've got to go Chorus's Experiment.
Have to go
no
Chorus.
question.
Oh, debating. I mean, you haven't got a supporter in hand yet, Alberto, so yeah, gonna have to be.
You double check, but that's not a real debate. You have to go Chorus's Experiment there, because that gets you 3 cards in your hand, 2 cards in the Lost Zone, Candy Charizard, but also a Comfey and an escape rope. Oh my word, that is a very good set of cards.
Wow. You can make an argument for every one of those cards being really helpful here, apart from that psychic energy, as it were. So let's see what Alberto takes.
I think the psychic energy probably goes, but there's so many options. Looking like he's thinking of getting the Charizard into the lost zone here.
I guess that makes sense. There's more outs to Charizard than there is rare candy, so you'd rather hold on to that. I guess he does have the Ultra Ball in hand as well, actually, so you can always pluck out another Charizard EX on the turn you need it. Ooh, okay. Now we see another Flower Slam. Okay, that's an easy decision for a double fire energy. So now I believe we can just Nest Ball out for Cramorant and then pay retreat, and then we see a Spit Innocently.
Yeah, nice and easy this one. Get that turn 1 KO on the Sableye. And then that's actually super annoying for Francisco, because not only do you only have one Pokemon out, but it's a Drapion, which isn't good in this matchup, and doesn't have, it's like he's got a retreat cost of 2, which is just kind of annoying, honestly.
Yeah.
So you got to use one of your switch, and you play your switching cards, but you got to burn one of them just to get Drapion out the active, and it's all just kind of annoying. So game 1 might not have gone Alberto's way, but game 2 we've seen a very different start.
Did just top deck a Colress Experiment there for Francisco, so going to try and mount the comeback here in this game, and we do see a Battle VIP pass. That's a very easy choice to send to the Lost Zone, and the rest of those cards are all pretty good as well. I think it's 2 switch cards and then 3 Pokemon, or 2 Pokemon I should say.
Yeah, and then there's always a question of how many switching options do you really want? Which Pokemon can you afford to get rid of? Now, there is already a Sableye in the discard, so if you lost zone one of them, the only access you have to it is if you recover it with a Super Rod. And there are 3 Super Rods in the deck, but yeah, that is as expected. So now Sableye only coming out of a Super Rod.
Which just adds another wrinkle for Francisco to try and juggle, as it were. So there we do see the Colress Experiment hitting the discard pile. We still have that Drapion in the active, and like you said, it really doesn't want to be there. We do see switch card, but if you switch card into Raikou, that's another 2 prize Pokemon. We don't really want damage into them anytime soon, but we are going to see a switch card and into Fleet-Footed Lane. Draw 1 card. Sky Seal Stone.
That's not the one you really want. Forest Seal Stone would be phenomenal right now. Go search any card. It's not the right one, unfortunately. And one of the important things to note about Drapion and about Raikou is they are both in Charizard range after a single prize taken by Francisco. So not yet, but it ain't going to take very long. Now, the good news is Francisco has gone into 4 cards in the Lost Zone. That means that Cramorant is on the board.
Oh, so there we go.
We're going to see a bit of Cramorant on Cramorant action.
Spit Innocently, spitting everywhere, as it were. So over to Alberto now. Does have that rare candy, does have the Ultra Ball. Looks like he's eyeing up potentially that Ultra Ball there. So, I mean, getting rid of a Battle VIP pass is probably a safe bet. And then, I don't know, maybe the Super or anything like this. If we do see conceal cards first of all, though, that makes perfect sense. That can make you informed decision. Okay, so now you even need to play the Ultra Ball because you just draw into the Charizard anyway. And here we go, Ross, for the first time in this top 8 round. Whoa, he's teasing me there, he's teasing me, come on.
Oh, it's coming, Shay, it's coming. We got candy, we got Charizard, we got some 2 prizes on the field. I still don't necessarily think you need it this turn.
No.
Like, don't get me wrong, you evolve it this turn.
100%.
But I don't think it needs to come in the active and start attacking this turn. There is a very tasty looking Cramorant in the active. That can be taken out with a Cramorant or with a Sableye. So, although you would need actually a lot more cards in the Lost Zone yet.
To get the Sableye?
Yeah, we're a little further away, unfortunately. But certainly Cramorant, if you can find one, if you can have access to it, then that would get the KO. You can do it with Charizard. It's just a bit of a risk leaving it in the active. Did Alberto have a Cramorant prized?
He did.
I believe he did. So with 1 KO and 1 prize, again, we are looking at recovering it with a Super Rod. So it might not be an option. We saw a couple of rounds ago, I said you don't want to attack with Sableye. And the player didn't, but they had to anyway, because it was Charizard, because they just did not have any other attackers. Sometimes if all you've got is Charizard, it's coming in and swinging.
Oh, I tell you what, it would have been really nice there if Alberto had an escape rope off that Colress, because then you could be taking 2 prize cards, since Francisco has taken a prize card here, but unfortunately wasn't able to find the escape rope off that. So now you raise a fantastic point. Actually, an odd choice of attacker here, because you can't find a Cramorant that's in the prize cards. So, do you want to attack with the Charizard now, because you haven't got a choice?
You do. Like, you don't want to attack with Charizard, but you do attack with Charizard. And the reason is very simply, you took the first prize, you are keeping you know, you're keeping the pressure on. And by this point, Alberto, if he didn't already, and a lot of the time by this stage in the tournament you kind of do, but if Alberto didn't already know what Francisco was playing, he kind of does now. We've seen enough of the deck with the Raikou and the Drapion to really give away it's a traditional Lost Box deck. His Charizard's not getting one-hit KO'd, so he's probably going to be down to 4 prizes taken before that Charizard leaves the field.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, actually. And then you can just try and develop any other traditional Lost Box attacker, like Sableye, who's very strong into Lost Box, that Sableye. So you can try and work towards that. I mean, he's at 7 in the Lost Zone. It's not, you know, marching towards that 10 in the Lost Zone at a pretty fast rate, as it were. Francisco does play a Colress experiment, I should say. So potentially eyeing up what to take there. Looks like provisionally may have chosen his 3. What is that? A Lightning Energy, and a Skate Whip, and a Manaphy.
That is what he's holding right now. So, yeah, it's not everything you need. The problem is, again, like we saw a minute ago of Alberto, Francisco's struggling for attackers, but Alberto at least could fall back on the Charizard and go, okay, I'll bring it up a turn earlier than I'd really like to.
Yeah.
But Francisco, you know, Raikou's a 2-energy attacker. You need Mirage Gate, but you're not at Mirage Gate yet. You're pretty close, but you're not there yet. And, you know, Drapion's no good as an attacker, so you can kind of bring in Cramorant, but you'll have to find the Cramorant and get it out, and that's a bit of a problem. So we do go up to 6 in the Lost Zone. The Lost Zone is just going right over the middle of the field here, just being like, you shall not pass.
That is what Francisco really wants to happen.
It's like, if I put them here, you can't attack me, unfortunately. Not the way it works. There we go. Create a little bit of space there, so the Pokemon can see each other as they're battling.
Dude, I wouldn't want to be seeing that Charizard if I'm on the other side. I'd rather the barrier of Escape Ropes and Lightning Energy, if I'm perfectly honest. But we do manage to get a Comfey into the act spot, so that means Francisco will be at the Magic 7 after this flower selecting, which means Mirage Gate does open up. But like you said, realistically, what would you even attack with here? Oh, and if you see Mirage Gate actually hit the Lost Zones, I would imagine there must be one in hand.
Yeah, if you don't get rid of one unless you got one in hand, that's just standard. Now we do see a Comfey coming up here. This is interesting because this essentially gives Francisco. Now, is he holding on to a boss's orders there?
He is. But he did play Colress this turn, I believe, though, at the start of the term. But he is holding on to a boss.
Yeah, he only plays 1, so it's not coming down this turn. This is interesting. The reason I'm sounding a bit surprised is you're taking out the Comfey. And here's the thing, you're taking a prize, that's lovely, but you're not dealing with a Charizard. And if you're not one-hitting KOing a Charizard, Charizard can literally come up now and be like, KO Raikou, KO Drapion, the game's over.
We just saw the pass, so Francisco had actually lost on 2 Mirage Gates that turn. I assumed he probably had 1 in hand, but definitely did not, opted not to attack at all. And I guess he doesn't want to attack with a 2-prize Pokemon into Charizard because it's just an immediate KO, but you're going to have to pressure it at some point and start putting some pressure on. But anyway, over to Alberto. So that's actually 2 Charmanders in the Lost Zone now. I believe it's only a 3-3 play, so there will be no other Charizards coming out this turn.
You are correct. There are 3 in the list. There are 2 in the Lost Zone. But again, if you're not staring down a one-hit KO, 1 Charizard will do nicely.
Yeah.
Now, there are 2 boss's orders in the deck list. I don't believe... Now, I don't think there's any in the Lost Zone.
No.
So there is a potential here, if the draw can go well enough, that what you can essentially do is just... Well, you could, before the Colress experiment came down, you could have just used Charizard with that boss's orders twice in a row. But you kind of don't need to. 2 single prizes, a 2-prize with Charizard, that will sew up the game, but I really would like, and I know it's hard, and I know you need to use Super Rod, I want to see a Cramorant, or maybe, oh, it's not that difficult, he's here!
Must have taken him out the prize cards there. We do see that Spit Innocently coming in. How can we since Alberto is at 11 in Lost Zone now, we could have actually seen a Lost Mine there as well, but Spit Innocently getting the job done perfectly. And Alberto is up, taking 3 prize cards to Francisco's 1. Here we do see a Forest Hill Stone attachment there, though, for Francisco. So you have to imagine whatever his plan is, he can probably execute it this turn. What do you think he's going to try and work towards this turn there, Ross?
I'm not sure what he's really got. I'm looking at Alberto and I'm just like, well, say I can drop 12 damage counters on a Manaphy or a Comfey, that's an easy KO.
Yeah.
Charizard can KO either a Raikou or a Drapion, that's an easy KO, and that's the game. And in that time, Francisco's got to try and get 5 prizes before that happens. So, I mean, here, traditionally what you would do is try and kind of build up to a big attacker and maybe try and go after that Charizard. The problem is, this is in some ways a mirror match. Now, Roxanne, standard, try and cut down your opponent's options, of course, but you can't just trade Cramorant for Cramorant when you're already for Cramorant, when you're already 2 prizes behind. So this is kind of a Roxanne cross your fingers moment. It's not necessarily that this is the best plan in the world. It is that I am behind. My opponent's got a lot of the same tricks I have, combined with a giant Pokemon I can't KO. So, but the problem is, even with this Roxanne, Alberto can just bring up that Charizard that already has enough energy and start taking prizes.
That's the thing, It's almost like if Alberto can successfully do the Lost Box dance as long as possible, and Francisco just allows that to happen without interrupting his Charizard, it's Alberto's game to lose at that point. If he can successfully trade, and then at some point take 2, upwards to 4 prizes with Charizard, he will just win. It's that simple. So I feel that Francisco has going to have to try and disrupt as much as possible here, or at least start doing with Charizard at some point. So if he just lets it have free reign, it's just like the elephant in the room. You have to do, you will have to address it at some point.
And really, at this stage, the only thing Alberto really needs at all is 1 boss's orders in the next 2 turns. Whatever is in the active, Charizard will be able to KO at this stage. After 1 prize taken, Charizard is hitting 210. There is nothing currently on Francisco's board that has more than 210. So what that means is Charizard is going to KO whatever's there. You might need a boss's orders to take a 2-prize Pokemon at some point. That's basically it. So even that Roxanne is a great desperation play that we see over and over again. But in this particular matchup, Alberto's kind of reached that stage where he doesn't need very much. I suppose there's a chance if you 2-hit KO the Charizard and get the first hit and your opponent draws nothing, you can win it that way. But then you need to hit the Charizard before the Charizard comes active.
So I think what Francisco might be doing here is what you just alluded to. He's going to, I would imagine, he's set up this Lost Mine. He's at 11 in the Lost Zone, so can use Lost Mine here. I imagine he might start trying to soften up that Charizard EX and then try and KO it with a Raikou Lightning Rondo. That's, I think, the line I see. To try and make it so that Charizard can only ever take 1 prize card, right? If Alberto cannot utilize Boss in order in combination with Charizard. I think that might be the line we're seeing. Let's see where Francisco chooses to pop this Lost Mine damage, because that will allude. So we see Summon a Manaphy. Is that a 7? We're going for the KO there. No, 3. And then so that's what, 90 damage to play with still, or 9 damage counters, I should say. Let's see where this goes. Definitely still thinking, so it might not be as straightforward as I previously thought.
I mean, if you want the so just gone for the, if you want the Charizard, I think you need 8 on the Charizard so that you can then finish it off with a Dragonite. But see, I wanted to see the damage counters on the Charizard there, because that Charizard can take 2 KOs in a row, and that's basically the game at this stage. So a couple of turns ago, I didn't want to see the Charizard coming active. Now I do. But you don't even really need it. You can still get the KO with Cramorant.
So I'm trying to work out what the line is there for Francisco. You'd imagine trying to damage the Manaphy, maybe you're trying to set up the Radiant Greninja at some point. There's not that many Pokemon in play for Alberto that have under 90 HP, so but Francisco is actually holding on to his 1 copy of Boss's orders as well, so that's why I thought it might be going down that route. But opting to see something that potentially we haven't, and hey, it worked for him last game, so whatever he is cooking up, you know what I mean? It's could be quite spicy, as it were. Let's see what Alberto can manage here. Just bench another Flower Selecting and a Jet Energy, and we'll see a Flower Selecting.
Yeah, we got some dig going on. Ooh, what have we found?
Raihan, I believe, obviously has played Colress this turn, so we won't be able to play it this turn. Raihan and another trading card. Can't quite work out what it is. Checking discard pile first, though. It looks like, oh, it's Sableye. Interesting.
Yeah, I like this play all over. I mean, at this stage, Alberto is going to keep being 2 prizes ahead. Like I say, don't need a Charizard, get the KO with Cramorant. Now he's down to 2 prizes. And there's still the option next turn to go Boss KO with Charizard. But what you can also do next turn is just promote Charizard, KO whatever's there, and then next turn KO again. That Charizard, if it comes active and takes the first hit on Francisco's Pokemon, then it basically gets 2 attacks. It's why you need to damage it before it comes active so that it gets one attack and then you get to go ahead and finish it off before it wreaks too much havoc. The problem is that is a much better plan when you're not 2 prizes behind, because Francisco's just trying to keep up with the prize race, and if you're using your damage to damage Charizard, then you might not be keeping up in the prize race, and it's just, from the start, so awkward. Honestly, if we were in Swiss, I think this is the point where with Francisco I'd be thinking about conceding. But knowing I've got like 3/4 of an hour left, which is how long you have for the whole best of 3 in Swiss.
This is true.
I have no worry. Play the game out, get as much information about your opponent's deck as you can, and then try and use that information in game 3. Because I'm not seeing much of a route for Francisco here. And I'd love to be proven wrong, because then we'd see a fun, surprising play, and that would be amazing. But right now, I'm just not really seeing it. The problem is Francisco is 2 prizes behind and not currently dealing with that Charizard.
Yeah, that's it. And then Francisco actually just doesn't play any more hand disruption, right? We've seen the one copy of Roxanne played. There is no power pad. So in an ideal world, Alberto can even just play the Raihan in his hand next turn, find the boss, and just sit on it and just say, right, like, you can't do anything. So, and this Charizard is just going to KO that Raikou or Drapion on the bench. Here we do see Super Rod looks like being played there. Looks like going to shuffle in. It's a combination of any combination of 3 Pokemon and/or base. Genji's going for a Sableye and 1 copy of Water as well. Then we see Nest Ball for the Sableye and shuffle, shuffle, shuffle.
Nice time save there, just getting that Sableye straight back again. And the thing is, Sableye is a great option, dropping around those damage counters, setting up those KOs, but it's a much less great option when you're behind on prizes, because you don't necessarily have the time to get full value out of it. So we're going to see Sableye coming on again here.
But this has to damage the Charizard surely this turn, right?
That's what I'd be looking for personally.
So, oh no. Double KO there, that makes sense. So now it goes down to, what, 2 prize cards with Francisco, I should say?
2 prize cards remaining, but
yeah, how do you close this game out?
So, I don't know. I mean, essentially, you're forcing Alberto to not bench 90 HP or less Pokemon.
Yes.
There is still a potential for a Greninja, but Cramorant's just out of range. So you'd only KO the Comfey. There's not a 2 prize turn next turn. Greninja is still not taking 2 prizes.
Oh, it looks like... Oh, and it's got some damage to play with, I should say.
Oh,
okay,
now
that changes things.
everything.
Yeah, this changes everything now. Okay. All right, so now Greninja is the win con. So can Alberto find Super Rod and Manaphy?
Super Rod and Manaphy or Boss's Orders.
Or that Switch Cart would actually put the Cramorant out of range, right?
Yes, it would. Switch Cart would heal Cramorant down to no damage on. That would do it as well. There are a bunch of conditions. Switch Cart to heal, Manaphy recovered and played down to block the damage. Boss's Orders just to flat KO one of those 2 prize Pokemon. And Francisco has gone for a very interesting play here, and that is, I can't deal with Charizard, I won't deal with Charizard,
pretty much.
And you can't make me. And you can see where we're going with this. You can see the play. It seems like a fairly low odds play from where I'm sitting here. It's worked in terms of getting some prizes, but the problem is, like you said yourself, there's a couple different ways around this right now. But we don't yet have a Boss's Orders. Now it looks like we got a Raihan. No, or are we discarding?
No, we are. I think we are seeing the Raihan. So I would imagine what we might see now then is Raihan to find the Manaphy again. I would imagine, and then you can just pay retreat, attack with Charizard, and say, right, whatever's inactive next turn gets KO'd. It's that simple. Like,
exactly right.
That's what I think we might see here.
And that's been my point of the Charizard all game. If there's no KO, if there's no one-hit KO potential, Charizard comes active, attacks, and then it's gonna get the attack next turn. And we've seen Alberto turn after turn go, that's all right, I got someone else, and it's worked beautifully.
Yeah.
And Francisco has, and I've just got to say, massive respect for Francisco here, pulling out a very awkward game plan with Sableye, dropping those damage counters, taking those KOs. But if we see a Manaphy hit the field...
He's actually got a copy of Artazon in his hand, which I actually missed. So you can actually use Artazon to find the Manaphy as well. So many different ways to skin a cat, as it were. Let's see. Definitely debating on what to take with this Raihan. It opts to go for a Beach Court by the looks of it. So... What's happening here then? So we've got a copy of Beach Court. That does play the Artisan though. I quite like the idea of grabbing the Beach Court actually. What that means is that there will be no boss's orders stall potentially. I imagine that energy might be low on Alberto's side. Maybe just saying, you know, if there is another copy of Roxanne, I've got the Beach Court, maybe I can try and remove around the active as well.
Yeah, so that Manaphy does come back out now. And that was always going to be the issue with Francisco's play. It was a really nice play, very well seen, set up beautifully with awesome damage counters, you know, damage placement all around the field. The problem is, because this takes 2 or 3 turns to really pull off properly, it gives your opponent time to try and actually counter it. Now we see the switch card as well here. So, and actually, yeah, the Cramorant's no longer an option because you've got Sableye down. But that's fine because Manaphy's also down. Yeah. So Greninja's not doing anything. Charizard KOs the Sableye. And, I mean, Francisco has done a fantastic job really pulling the game this far along. Yeah. And making it a real game, getting down to, you know, the real kind of end game here, looking for that Greninja. But now it's even more awkward than it was before, if you can believe that. Still no reason to concede, not with 14 minutes remaining on the clock.
Yeah, that Charizard is done. Now, that's a statement right there. You can confidently promote that if you're Alberto and saying, right, I know you can't deal with this. You know, try and take 2 fights this turn. I healed off the Cramorant. I got Manaphy down as well. So I'm not 100% sure. What is the win claim for Francisco? It's going to be like a boss's order stall, potentially. Boss orders plus Sableye, maybe. Even the boss order is in hand, I believe, but things like could be last chance saloon here. I'm struggling to see what Francisco can do to win this game.
It looks like we are going to be using Artisan there, going searching for a basic Pokemon. Is it a Cramorant he's going for? Yeah,
it looks like it. I mean, that's the only target. Oh, fading the search by looks of it as he shuffles up the deck there. So let's see, what has Francisco got? Does he have the Greninja? Does he have a Dragonite V? Does he have Forestall Stone? But I think the V-Star, it hasn't been used apparently. Oh, so it is going to be boss's orders stall, trap into the Radiant Greninja. And I like that, just play into your outs. And then obviously this is where Alberto taking the Beach Court was so handy, just in case, just as I mentioned. And that wraps up that game there. All tied up at 1, all game 3 in this top 8, Ross. Oh boy. I love that. The Beach Court comes down and we just, you know, Francisco, quick thumbs up, picks up his cards. Let's go to game 3. That was, and the latter part of that game was a lot more interesting than I thought it was going to be. But the problem is, when you go ahead by a couple of prizes and then you've got that Charizard against a deck that cannot get a one-hit KO, it makes everything so much more awkward. And I really like what Francisco did there at the end of the game, playing around with that Sableye. It didn't work, but there was a small chance that it would. And like I said, in Swiss, when you've got 45 minutes for the best of 3, maybe you don't do that because the odds of it are very low. You're relying on your opponent never getting the Manaphy back, and you're relying on your opponent not healing the Cramorant, and you're relying on your opponent not having a boss's orders. Like, any of those things would have scuppered that plan. Yes. But when you've got the time for a proper best of 3 in the top 8 like we have, give it a go, see what happens. Yeah, and one real interesting ring card I'd like to keep an eye on here is that Alberto opted to make Francisco go first, and that really hampered Francisco's setup. So I wonder, do you think Francisco fires that off back to Alberto and says, right, you go first in this game 3, or does Francisco opt to go first? Because it worked really well for Alberto in the last game, but does Francisco agree that going, second is more advantageous? From my experience, players know coming into the tournament. Yes. So, you know, from what I've seen with my testing, talking to my friends, etc., over many, many, many years of playing the Pokemon TCG, you know which matchups you want to go first and second, and you know which matchups are worth having a go going second if it's not going your way. Yes. Generally speaking, players won't change their preferences in the middle of a tournament. It's a case of, if you always go first when you can against Lost Box, you'll make that decision. Yes. But if you're willing to go second, it's something you've probably done many times before. Oh, that boss's orders in the prizes, I'm not loving here.
There are 2 copies, but it's still a bit annoying.
Dragonite V's in the prize. That's one of Francisco's only heavy hitters, actually. So, right, who is going first? And no, Francisco says, I would like to go first. So let's see how that pans out for Francisco. This is a game-free scenario. Winner goes through to top 4 and continues their chance of earning their Hawaii invite right here, right now.
Yeah, of course, Alberto, the last remaining Charizard in the field. Francisco, one of 3 Lost Box players that are still remaining in the field. So we've got this opening Battle VIP pass. And the reason we're putting those energy to the top isn't because we're searching out energy. You can't do that with Battle VIP pass. That would be naughty. The reason we're putting the energy up to the top is because these players, it's an opening deck search of the game. You have got 6 random cards from your deck that you've put down as prizes. And you don't have access to those cards until you draw them as prizes. And we've got the fancy prize cam so we can see what's down there, but the players don't. So this first search of the turn, or first search of the game, I should say, always goes on a little bit longer because the players are literally just trying to figure out what's prized, what's available. Because if you're setting up a big Sableye play and it turns out all your psychic energy is prized, that's a bad thing. Also, very important in a Lost Zone deck because you have got to put cards in a Lost Zone and get rid of them forever. So if you've got a card where 1 or 2 copies is prized, you are less likely to put them in the Lost Zone knowing that you've got some hiding in your prizes.
Yeah, and that's the sort of balancing factor of these Lost Zone decks. That sure, you have the powerful options of, you know, like a Mirage Gate to accelerate energy, and you have the power of Lost Mon be able to spread 12 damage counters, but it's all offset by the fact that you have to put 10 of your cards into a Lost Zone that you can never access again for the rest of the game. So resource management is very, very important for the Lost Zone players, which is why the prize taking, as you said perfectly, is even more crucial for a deck of that nature.
Yeah, so we've got Comfey coming into the active there quite nicely. You got the flower selecting. 1 card, you look at the top 2 cards of your deck, 1 goes to your hand, 1 goes to the Lost Zone. So you get extra cards and you build your Lost Zone. Not a phenomenal turn 1, but we've got most of the Pokemon down that we would want. 2 cards in the Lost Zone. That is not bad at all. Alberto going second, turn 1, Colress's Experiment. Why are you oohing, Shay?
That Colress Experiment wasn't very good. Just a lot of a lot of energy and a skate ropes. And I think was there a Battle VIP? Okay, there is a Battle VIP pass in Alberto's hand. We do see 1 copy of Charmander as well. Oh, now here we go. Battle VIP pass off that flower selection. That's 2 Battle VIP pass for Alberto as well. So we are off to the races here. And this would most likely mean, I think we saw a copy of Jet Energy, which means if you grab a Comfey and a Cramorant here, you have a guaranteed Lost Provisions activation. Spit Innocently will attack for free, which means Alberto should, in theory, go 1 prize card up here.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a Charmander in hand, so 4 cards from VIP Pass. You're going to see a second Comfey, you're going to see a Radiant Greninja, you're going to see a Cramorant, and then it's basically that 4th card is going to be whatever it is Alberto wants. Do you want the... what am I talking about? The insurance, that's the word, about against that Charmander getting KO'd, get a second one of them. Do you want a Sableye if you think you can get more cards in the Lost Zone quickly? Do you want a 3rd Comfey to go really turbo on the flower selecting? Lots of different options, but I think 3 of the 4 are pretty set.
Yeah, you are 100% correct there. And this is what we love to see in a game-free scenario in a top 8. Both players being able to set up, hopefully, and they've both got 2 copies of Battle VIP Pass. So we should see both decks firing on all cylinders here. And yeah, Alberto just making sure, consulting in the hand, making sure he takes the right card that he likes. So we do see that Radiant Greninja. That's probably always a shoe-in. I'd probably see the Manaphy. We see a Charmander in hand already, so Comfey Cramorant maybe.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So the 1 Charmander in hand means you don't have to go and search for 1. It's whether you want that insurance of having a second 1 on the field. So the 4th card actually chooses to go for a Manaphy as the 4th card from Battle VIP Pass. I like this one. You're basically saying, I've had a good start. I really don't want you to use Greninja. And it basically means you put that Charmander down. And unless we see a turn 2 Sableye, the Charmander is safe. Unfortunately, we have already seen that in this match.
We have, but if you're Alberto, you can think, right, 1 Lost Vacuum's already in the Lost Zone, so, you know, chances of that Lost Zone acceleration could be a little bit lower. Here we do see a Flowers, the concealed card, I should say, Switch card and Beach Court. Wow, this Alberto is drawing extremely well here. Things look, see, there's the Jet Energy activation, getting that Comfey in the active. Rare Candy Ultra. Oh, you'd look to keep both of them, really, wouldn't you? So you can get get that Charizard a little bit easier.
Has he not got Charizard in hand? Yeah, he had one in his opening hand.
Oh boy, Alberto is drawing very well here. This is what we love to see. There we see a pay energy, pay retreat, I should say, and a spit innocently there. I would imagine as well.
Spit innocently, KO the Comfey, go up by 1 prize, and feel pretty gosh darn good about your start. This is the second game in a row where Alberto has gone second and started very, very nicely indeed. So yeah, we got the rare candy Charizard already in hand with no hand disruption coming out from Francisco. So the only way to pull it off is to go for that turn 2 Sableye, which is even less likely now than it was last time.
Yeah, and this is, if I was Francisco, I would be a little bit worried, because if we play this same dance we did in game 2, where if Alberto can successfully be a Lost Box deck for as long as possible and then spike the Charizard at the end, there's nothing that Francisco can really do about it, unless, like you said, the Lost Mine comes out here. We do see a Lost Vacuum. That's one piece of the puzzle, as that gets 2 cards into the Lost Zone, taking him to, what's that, 5?
5 in total in the Lost Zone.
So we need, what, 2 from a Chorus, which would take you to, what's that, 7?
And then you need 3 more flower selectings, which with only 2 bench spaces does not look like it's happening. Now, we've seen 1 Lost Vacuum, we've seen 2 Lost Vacuum already be played. Is there a 3rd in the list? There is. So there is actually still a chance here. It's unlikely.
It's very small, very
minor. It is still possible. Those Lost Vacuums, sneakily good for these Turbo Lost Box decks. Obviously, you don't generally see so many of them played in other variants, but in these Turbo Lost Zone decks, they're sneakily good for just getting you to 10 cards in the Lost Zone very, very quickly.
Yeah, so that takes us up to, what, 7 now, so 3 more. We did see the Chorus being played, we've seen the Comfey being used, we've seen 1 Lost Vacuum already, we see a concealed cards there, Arven, interesting card, and a Nest Ball, not quite Lost Vacuum and a target for Lost Vacuum either, so what can Francisco manufacture up here? I don't think we've seen an energy attachment yet, so we can see a pay retreat. Is it going to be a Cramorant Spit Innocently turn here?
I think it might have to be a Cramorant. You want it, clearly trying to get 10 in the Lost Zone for Sableye, not able to pull it off. And of course, we've seen the attachment now on the Comfey for retreat. So it's just Cramorant into Cramorant. But if we're going to see this back and forth, Francisco is going to have an answer for that Charizard. That is going to be the issue here.
And here we go, Ross. Here we go. We see the Charizard. I was waiting for that. I was tapping my fingers. Charizard with that Infernal Rain has hit the playing surface, going 3 fire energy from your deck and attaching them where you like. And if you're Alberto now, you're thinking, right, this is looking good. I can successfully be Lost Box for as long as possible, and I've got this Charizard coming down very fast. And this is just a fantastic place to be, right? As soon as that Charizard comes down, fresh health, 430, capable of one-shotting everything in Francisco's deck now, because he's taking a prize card, don't forget. So this Charizard is ready for action.
Absolutely. Unfortunately for Francisco, that Charizard is big. It hits hard. It is awkward. I will say Dragonite can take a hit with only 1 prize. It takes 2 prizes from Francisco to KO a Dragonite. Not relevant at the moment, but something to look out for in case that Dragonite does actually come in.
Does need to be taken from the prize cards before we can use that as well.
I mean, another excellent point. It's not looking ideal for Francisco. That's really the only way. If you bring that in early, you can at least start a 2-hit KO race, but you can't even do that because it's in the prize cards.
Yeah, so over to Alberto. Let's play a Chorus Experiment. Does actually have another Charizard in hand and a Charmander. So if we see another rare candy flitter into the hand at some point, we could see a double Charizard EX, which would, well, that would be a statement. But we don't currently see that rare candy yet. Just deciding what to take off on this Chorus here. Looks like it's just debating. It's like, ooh, still debating. Consulting the hand there. Hand seems very good. A ton of switching options and a Nest Ball. So I think that's all you want to see is Lost Box player, right?
Oh yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm just thinking if you can get 2 Charizards set up, you can just basically go aggro Charizard as early as you want, knowing that your opponent's going to take 4 attacks to get through them, and by that point you've pretty much won the game. So it's not generally what you're going for, because you can't rely on getting 2 Charizard early. be. But if you can get it, it's kind of lovely. We see a Comfey hitting the lost zone from flower selecting so that the Artisan can stay around. And as it stands, we're attacking with a Charizard. Waits to be seen if Alberto is able to get something like a Cramorant to return the KO without putting the Charizard in the active.
Right.
But no, there isn't. We're going aggro Charizard, and I'd love to see a Charmander hit the field here.
Yeah.
But no.
Opts not to. That's interesting. I actually think Alberto's second copy of Cramorant was prized this game as well, so that could be why we didn't see it that turn. But yeah, I would like to have seen that Charmander hit the playing service there, so you can, if you do find that rare candy, you can rare candy into the Charizard. Over to Francisco's turn now. Starts the turn with a Chorus's Experiment. Looking at the top 5 cards, take 3, put 2 in the loss. And we see a Forest Seal Stone. Don't think we see a V Pokemon as of yet, so we won't be able to start Alchemy anytime soon. So let's see what he takes.
Looks like he's eyeing it up anyway, because you can always play a Pokemon V in a moment,
yeah,
and then get the activation from there. And I mean, the thing you've got to be careful of here is that you do 2-hit KO the Charizard.
Yeah.
What you don't want to do is end up kind of hitting it twice with a Cramorant, or once with a Cramorant, once with a Sableye, and then it's actually been hit twice and not been KO'd. So you can have a small hit here with a, with a Sableye or a Cramorant, but you need to follow it up with something like a Dragonite, which is obviously prized. So you would need, I mean, honestly, Raikou, but Raikou